I was still wearing my airport shoes when I saw one small gold earring on the hardwood floor beside my bed. By the next night, I was sitting alone in a hotel room watching my husband betray me on camera. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that something felt wrong the moment I stepped into the house. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not the kind you get on a Sunday afternoon when everything settles. This was the kind of quiet that makes you stop halfway through the doorway and listen, like the house itself was holding its breath. I set my suitcase down by the entry bench and just stood there for a second. No TV, no footsteps, no sound from the kitchen. Just the low hum of the thermostat and the faint ticking of the wall clock over the hallway mirror. "Greg," I called out, not too loud. Nothing. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. He knew I was getting in around 4. I walked into the kitchen. The coffee pot still had half a pot in it, cold and bitter. One of his work boots sat crooked near the mudroom door like he'd kicked it off in a hurry and never came back for it. That wasn't like him. Greg was messy in small ways, but not careless. I told myself not to read into it. I'd been on the road all week, Minneapolis, back-to-back meetings, hotel beds that never felt clean no matter how tucked the sheets were. I was tired, that was all. I grabbed my suitcase and headed upstairs. The bedroom smelled faintly like laundry detergent, and something else I couldn't place. Not perfume, not exactly, just different. I pulled the comforter back, already planning to throw everything in the wash. I always did after a trip. It made me feel like I was resetting things. That's when I saw it. Near the baseboard just past Greg's side of the bed. A small gold hoop. I crouched down slowly like it might disappear if I moved too fast. It wasn't real gold. I could tell right away. The color was a little too bright, the metal too light. The kind you pick up at Target or one of those mall stores, Claire's maybe. Cheap, but not ugly. Just ordinary. I picked it up between my fingers. It was warm. That didn't make sense. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because I knew 2 things immediately. It wasn't mine. And I had seen it before. My chest tightened before my brain caught up. I stood there in the middle of my own bedroom, still holding that earring, trying to find a reasonable explanation that didn't make me feel sick. Maybe it got caught in the laundry somehow. Maybe one of Greg's clients dropped it if he'd stopped by. Maybe. Then it hit me. Thanksgiving. Dana had worn a pair just like this. I remembered because she'd been standing at the kitchen island laughing at something Greg said, and I'd noticed how the green stone caught the light when she turned her head. I actually complimented her on them. She said, "Oh, these just cheap little things." Cheap little things. I swallowed hard. "No," I said out loud, shaking my head like that could physically knock the thought out of it. "No. That's not what this is." I set the earring on the dresser like it might burn me if I held it too long. My hands felt cold, my fingers stiff. I went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and just stood there watching the water run. This was ridiculous. Dana was Greg's sister. I had known her for over 20 years. I had helped her after her divorce. Let her stay in our guest room for almost 3 months. Sat with her on that same bed while she cried about what her ex-husband had done to her. The idea that she would... I shut my eyes tight. No, I wasn't going there. Not yet. By the time Greg got home, I had almost convinced myself I was overthinking it. Almost. He walked in around 6:30, keys in one hand, phone in the other. "Hey," he said like it was any other day, "you're back early." "Flight got in on time," I answered, watching him carefully. He leaned in and kissed my cheek. Quick, familiar, nothing unusual. Except I noticed something I hadn't before. He didn't look surprised to see me. That sat wrong in my chest. I kept my tone light. "Anyone stop by while I was gone?" He shrugged, already heading toward the fridge. Dana came by once, dropped off some banana bread, checked on the house." My stomach dropped just a little. "Just once?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly, too quickly. "Why?" I shook my head. "No reason, just curious." He smiled like that settled it. Like the answer was neat and complete, and didn't need another thought. We ate dinner like we always did. TV on low in the background. He talked about a kitchen remodel he was working on in Hilliard. I nodded at the right moments. But I couldn't stop watching him. Every small thing felt slightly off. The way he avoided looking at the bedroom when we walked past it. The way he laughed a second too late at something on TV. And then I hated myself for noticing any of it. Because maybe none of it meant anything. Maybe I was just tired and letting my mind go somewhere ugly. Later that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling while Greg snored softly beside me. I thought about that earring sitting on the dresser. I thought about Dana's laugh at Thanksgiving. I thought about how familiar everything in this room felt, and how suddenly it didn't. Around 2 a.m. I made a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one. Just a quiet, steady thought. I need to know. The next morning, instead of driving into the office, I went to Best Buy. I walked the aisles like I didn't belong there, picking up boxes, putting them down, reading labels I barely understood. I almost left twice. Stood there with my keys in my hand thinking, this is insane. You are about to spy on your own husband. What are you doing? But then I pictured that earring again. And the way Greg answered too smoothly. And I stayed. I bought a small indoor camera, paid cash. Sat in my car afterward with the box on the passenger seat, staring at it like it might tell me what to do next. Just check, I whispered to myself. That's all this is, just checking. Back home, I set it up in the bedroom. My hands were shaking so badly I had to redo the angle twice. I placed it facing the bed and the door. Subtle, easy to miss. Then I packed a small overnight bag. When Greg came home that evening, I told him I had to head to Toledo for a couple days. Last-minute issue with a supplier. He didn't question it. Didn't even hesitate. All right, he said, drive safe. He kissed my cheek again. I grabbed my bag, got in my car and drove, not to Toledo. Just 15 minutes away, a Hampton Inn off the highway. I checked in, went up to my room and sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open. The camera feed flickered on. Our bedroom. Empty. I waited. At 8:14 p.m., Greg walked in. He tossed his keys on the dresser. Took off his shirt, moved around like he always did. Normal. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I almost closed the laptop. Almost told myself this was enough, that nothing was happening, that I could go home and pretend everything was fine. Then at 8:27 the bedroom door opened again. Someone stepped inside. I leaned closer to the screen, my breath catching in my throat. And there she was. Dana. She walked into my bedroom like she belonged there. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I just sat there staring at the screen, whispering under my breath. No. And for a long moment I didn't even feel the tears. Just a hollow, empty silence spreading through my chest. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I just watched. That's the part that still unsettles me the most. Not what they did, but how long I sat there letting it play, like if I stared hard enough something in it would change. It didn't. Dana stepped into the room like she'd done it before. No hesitation, no awkward pause, no looking around to see if anything felt out of place. She went straight to my side of the bed. My side. She sat down, crossed one leg over the other, and let out this soft little laugh I knew too well. The same laugh she used at family dinners, the same one I'd heard 100 times. Greg closed the door behind her. You're sure she's not coming back early? She asked. He didn't even think about it. She won't be back till Thursday, he said, already reaching for her. We're fine. We're fine. That was the moment something inside me dropped. Not shattered, not exploded. Just dropped. Like a floor giving way. Because it wasn't the betrayal in his voice. It was the certainty. The ease. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, my face inches from the screen. Dana stood up and walked over to the dresser. My dresser. She opened the top drawer. I felt my stomach twist. She picked up my perfume, the one Greg bought me for our anniversary 2 years ago, and sprayed it lightly on her wrist. Then she smiled. Not guilty, not nervous. Comfortable. Like she belonged there. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Careful, Greg said, half laughing. You're gonna use it all. She won't notice, Dana replied. I shut my eyes for a second. Just 1 second. When I opened them again, she was slipping on my robe. My robe. The soft gray one I wore every morning with my coffee, standing by that same window. I pushed the laptop away from me so suddenly it nearly slid off the bed. I stood up too fast, the room spinning. No, I said out loud, pacing. No, no, no. I made it to the bathroom just in time. Dropped to my knees in front of the toilet and threw up. The kind that leaves your eyes burning and your whole body shaking. I stayed there for a minute, maybe longer. Time felt strange. When I finally sat back against the wall, the tile cold through my shirt, I pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw spots. I still didn't cry. I thought I would. But what I felt was heavier than that. Like my body didn't know what to do with it yet. I rinsed my mouth, stood up slowly, and walked back into the room. The laptop was still open. Still playing. I forced myself to sit down. "You need to see it," I whispered, "all of it. Because if I didn't, I knew what would happen. Tomorrow I'd wake up and tell myself it wasn't that bad. That maybe I misunderstood. That maybe there was still a version of this that made sense. So I watched. Not everything. Just enough. Enough to know this wasn't new. Enough to know it wasn't a mistake. Enough to know they were comfortable. Too comfortable. I reached over and muted the audio. I couldn't handle hearing them anymore. That's when I noticed something else. Dana had brought a bag with her. A tan leather folder. I leaned closer again, squinting at the screen. It looked familiar. And then it clicked. Greg's office. He had one just like that, same color, same worn corner near the zipper. Why would she bring that here? At night. Into my bedroom. A cold, sharp thought slid into place. This wasn't just whatever this was. It wasn't just them being stupid or reckless or... This was connected to something else. Something bigger. I replayed that part again. Watched as she set the folder down on the dresser. Watched Greg glance at it like it belonged there. Like it wasn't out of place at all. My chest tightened. "Okay," I said quietly, sitting back. "Okay." I closed the laptop this time. Slowly. Carefully. Like I was sealing something inside it. The next morning I didn't go home. I couldn't. I checked out of the hotel, got in my car, and drove until I found a Panera with a half-empty parking lot. I sat there for over an hour. Coffee in my hand, I didn't drink. Laptop open again. I rewatched parts of the footage. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed to. To see what I missed. To understand. That's when the anger finally started to show up. Not loud. Not explosive. Quiet. Sharp. I opened my banking app. Started scrolling. At first nothing stood out. Groceries, utilities, gas. Normal. Then I started looking closer. There it was. A charge from a jewelry store in Easton. I frowned. I didn't remember that. Then a hotel charge, Dayton. Another one a few weeks later. Then more transfers. Small amounts, then bigger ones. Always with vague little notes. Help. Thanks. Rent. My fingers tightened around my phone. I kept going. Line after line. Month after month. And slowly a picture started to form. One I didn't like. One I couldn't ignore. "This isn't just cheating," I said under my breath. My voice sounded different. Flatter. Colder. I shut everything down and leaned back in my seat. For a second I thought about calling Greg. Just dialing his number and saying his name and waiting to hear what he would do. But I didn't. Instead I called Rosa. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" I hesitated. Then said, "I need you to tell me not to do something stupid." She didn't ask questions. "Where are you?" "Panera, off Sawmill." "I'll be there in 15. She showed up in 12. Walked in, saw my face, and didn't even pretend everything was fine. We sat down. I didn't show her the footage. I didn't need to. I just told her enough. About the earring. About the camera. About Dana. Rosa listened without interrupting. Just nodded once or twice. When I finished, she leaned back, folded her arms, and looked at me for a long second. "Okay," she said. "Okay," I repeated, almost laughing. "That's your reaction." She shrugged. "You want me to cry, or you want me to help you think?" I stared at her. My throat tightened again. "I don't know what I want," I admitted. She leaned forward. "Then I'll tell you what you need," she said. "You need to not fall apart right now." I looked down at my hands. They were still shaking. "I don't think I have a choice." "You do," she said firmly. "You fall apart later. Right now you get organized." That word stuck. Organized. Like this was a problem to solve. Not a life falling apart. "Start with facts," she continued. "What do you know for sure?" I took a breath. "They're seeing each other." "Okay. And there's money involved." Her eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of money? I don't know yet, I said, but it's there. She nodded slowly. Then that's where you start, she said. You don't confront, you don't warn, you figure out exactly what he's been doing. I sat back, letting that sink in. For the first time since I found that earring, I felt something shift. Not better, not even close, but clearer. Later that afternoon, I drove past Greg's office. I don't even know why. Instinct, maybe. I parked across the street and waited. At 3:42 p.m., Greg walked out, got into his truck, drove off. I watched until he disappeared. 10 minutes later, another car pulled in. Donna. She got out, smoothed her hair, and walked inside like she belonged there too. I stared at the building for a long second. Then I whispered, barely audible, "This isn't just cheating anymore." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. This is something else. And whatever it was, I was going to find out. The first call I made the next morning wasn't to Greg. It was to a lawyer. Her name was Sheila Pruitt. 63, Columbus-based, recommended by a woman I worked with who had gone through a messy divorce a few years back. She doesn't do drama, my coworker had said. She does outcomes. That sounded about right. I sat in her office 2 days later, a legal pad on my lap, my laptop in my bag, and a knot in my chest that hadn't gone away since the hotel bathroom. Sheila didn't waste time. "What do you have?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. I slid the flash drive across her desk. "Video," I said, from inside my bedroom. She didn't react to the words, just plugged it in, watched a short clip, then leaned back. "All right," she said calmly, "that's clear." I nodded, staring at the edge of her desk. "They've been seeing each other, his sister." She didn't flinch. "I've seen worse," she said. "Not often, but worse." That should have shocked me. It didn't. "What matters," she continued, "is what you want to do next." I hesitated. "I want to know everything first," I said, "before I say anything to him." She nodded once. "Good, because once you confront him, he starts covering tracks. You lose leverage." Leverage. That word landed differently than organized. Stronger. "What kind of leverage?" I asked. She folded her hands. "Money," she said. "Assets, debt, business ties, anything with your name on it." I let out a slow breath. "There's something there," I said. "I've seen transfers, charges. I don't know the full picture yet." Sheila leaned forward slightly. "Then we build it," she said, "piece by piece." She pulled out a yellow pad and started writing. "Tell me about the business." "Greg's remodeling company," I said. "Custom kitchens mostly. He started it about 8 years ago." "With what funding?" I paused. "Our home equity," I said. "And a line of credit." "Whose credit?" I swallowed. "Mine." She nodded like she expected that. "Your income at the time." "Stronger than his," I admitted. "Still is." She looked up at me then. "So he built that business on your financial backing?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She tapped her pen against the paper once. "All right," she said, "then listen carefully." I sat up straighter without meaning to. "The law doesn't care about love," she said. "It cares about money. Where it came from, where it went, and whose name is attached to it." I felt something steady in my chest. Not comfort. Direction. "Start gathering everything," she continued. "Mortgage documents, loan agreements, business filings, bank statements, emails, anything that ties you to his company financially." "I already have some of it," I said. "Good, get more." She paused. "And don't confront him yet." "I won't." "Because right now," she said, looking me straight in the eye, "he thinks he's in control. We don't want to ruin that illusion too early." I nodded slowly. For the first time since this started, I felt like I wasn't just reacting. I was planning. The next few days blurred together in a strange, focused way. I moved through my own house like a quiet stranger. Greg still came home, still talked about work, still acted like everything was normal. I played my part. Listened, nodded, asked small questions. Watched. At night after he went to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and went through everything I could access. Bank statements, credit reports, old emails. That's when I saw it. My credit score. I stared at that number longer than I should have. Not because I was proud, but because I knew what it took to get there. Years of doing things right. Paying bills on time, keeping balances low, making careful decisions. That number wasn't just a score. It was discipline, stability, control. And now, I started cross-referencing transactions. Line by line. The jewelry store charge. The hotel stays. The Venmo payments. Some came from our joint account. Some came from a business account Greg managed. That bothered me more than I expected, because it meant he wasn't just lying to me. He was mixing things. Blurring lines. Using whatever he could get away with. I hit a wall when I tried to access one of his shared business folders. Password changed. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. That hurt. More than the money. More than the numbers. It meant he had already started building something separate. Something I wasn't part of anymore. I closed my eyes. Took a breath. Stay focused, I muttered. Rosa came over that evening. Brought takeout I barely touched. She watched me pace around the kitchen for a while before speaking. You're wearing a path in the floor, she said. I'm thinking, I replied. Then sit and think. I did. Told her about the locked files, the transactions, the business account. She listened. Then said, what about paper? I frowned. What do you mean? Greg's the kind of guy who still keeps copies, she said. Right. I thought about it. Then nodded slowly. Basement, I said. Utility room, fireproof box. Then that's your next stop. I waited until Greg left early the next morning for a job site. Then I went downstairs. The basement smelled faintly like dust and old paint. The box was exactly where I remembered. Gray, heavy, combination lock. My hands hesitated for just a second. Then I turned the dial. Left, right, left. It clicked open. Inside were folders. Neatly labeled. Invoices, contracts, loan documents. I pulled them out one by one, sitting on the cold concrete floor. At first it looked normal. Then I started seeing patterns. Invoices for work that didn't match completed projects. Payments labeled as vendor advances that lined up with dates I'd already flagged. I flipped through faster now. My heart picking up again. There it was. A transfer. Same amount as one of the Venmo payments. Different label. Same timing. I let out a slow breath. Okay, I whispered, okay. This wasn't sloppy. It was intentional. Careful enough to pass at a glance. But not careful enough to hide from someone who knew what to look for. I gathered what I needed. Took pictures. Put everything back exactly where I found it. Closed the box. And sat there for a moment longer than necessary. Just breathing. That night at dinner I decided to test something. Keep it casual. Keep it light. I was looking at some of the paperwork earlier. I said, cutting into my food. That business credit line, are we renewing that soon? Greg looked up. Too quickly. Yeah, he said. Probably after the open house next month. Need me to sign anything I asked? He smiled. And it wasn't subtle. That might help, he said. Yeah. There it was. Clear as anything. He still needed me. Not emotionally. Not as a partner. As a resource. He reached across the table, touched my hand. I appreciate you, he said. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a second something twisted in my chest. 24 years. All of it sitting right there between us. Then I smiled back. Small. Controlled. Of course, I said. Inside a different thought settled in. Cold. Steady. Was he kissing me? Or my credit? Later that night I called Sheila. I want to do this right, I said. You will, she replied. I don't want a private conversation, I continued. I want him to feel it. There was a pause on the line. Then quietly. Where does he feel most confident? I didn't hesitate. Public, I said. His showroom, his clients. She let out a soft breath. Then that's where it happens. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the dark kitchen window. I want him exposed, I said, where he performs best. Sheila's voice didn't change. Then let him perform, she said. I hung up. Sat there in the silence. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was ready. The day of Greg's open house was warm for March. One of those early spring afternoons in Ohio where the sun feels promising, like winter might finally be letting go. Greg had been talking about this event for weeks. Big turnout, he kept saying, good exposure, could bring in some serious clients. I nodded every time. Played along. Helped him pick out the shirt he ended up wearing, light blue, pressed the one that made him look just polished enough without trying too hard. I remember ironing it 2 nights before. Standing there in the laundry room smoothing out the sleeves, thinking how normal everything still looked from the outside. That part almost made me laugh now. I parked a block away from the showroom. Sat in my car for a minute, hands resting on the steering wheel. Rosa was beside me. You ready? She asked. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. But I'm going anyway. She nodded. Good answer. I stepped out of the car, smoothed down my jacket, and walked toward the building. The glass front reflected the afternoon light. Inside, I could already see people moving around, guests, clients, a few contractors Greg worked with regularly. The door opened. Voices, laughter, the smell of catered sandwiches and coffee. Normal? That word again. Greg was near the center of the room talking to a small group, smiling, gesturing with his hands like he always did when he wanted to impress people. He looked good, confident, put together, like a man who believed everything in his life was exactly where it should be. Then he saw me. Just for a second, something flickered across his face. Surprise. Then it was gone, replaced with that same easy smile. He walked over. Hey, he said, leaning in slightly, glad you came. His voice was low, controlled. I met his eyes. I wouldn't miss this, I said. He nodded like that made sense. Like I was exactly where he expected me to be. Grab something to eat, he said. I'll be up in a few minutes. I gave a small smile and stepped past him. Rosa stayed close. We moved toward the refreshment table, but I wasn't really looking at the food. I was scanning the room. And then I saw her. Dana stood near the front desk area, greeting people as they came in. She looked comfortable, relaxed, like she belonged there. And in her ears, both earrings, the full pair, gold hoops with that small green stone catching the light every time she turned her head. My stomach tightened, but my face didn't change. Of course, I muttered under my breath. Rosa followed my gaze. Yeah, she said quietly. That's bold. I didn't answer. Because something inside me had already settled. This was the moment. Greg clapped his hands lightly to get everyone's attention. Hey everyone, if I can have just a minute. The room quieted. People turned. He stepped forward, standing in front of a display kitchen setup, one hand resting casually on the counter. I just want to say thank you all for coming out today, he began. This business means a lot to me. It's been years of hard work, long nights, and a lot of support from the people around me. He paused, smiled. And I wouldn't be standing here without family, without the people who believed in me from the start. There it was. Family. I stepped forward. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough. Greg, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. He turned toward me, still smiling. Yeah. I took a breath. Kept my tone even. I think it might be a good idea to explain what that support actually looked like. The room shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. Greg's smile tightened slightly. What do you mean? He asked. I walked to the refreshment table. Picked up the folder I had brought. Set it down in front of me. Opened it. I said calmly that this business was built using our home equity, my credit, my income history. I reached inside and pulled out a printed statement. Set it on the table. Soft. Deliberate. And that the financial support you're talking about came directly from me. A murmur moved through the room. Greg let out a short laugh. Elaine, what are you doing? I didn't look at him. Not yet. I'm clarifying, I said. He stepped closer. Now's not the time. I held up another sheet. This, I continued, is a transfer from a business account labeled Vendor Advance. I placed it next to the first one. Same date I added as a payment to Dana Whitmore's rent. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Greg's face changed. Not all at once, but enough. Okay, he said, his voice lower now. We can talk about this later. I finally looked at him. No, I said quietly, we won't. I reached into the folder again. Pulled out a still image. Placed it on the table. Face down at first. then turned it over. It was from the camera. Our bedroom. Greg and Dana. Close enough that no explanation could fix it. Someone near the back gasped. A glass clinked against the floor. I heard Rosa exhale beside me. Dana froze. Her face went pale. "This is a private matter," Greg said quickly, his voice tightening. "We don't need to." "You had private," I interrupted. My voice stayed calm. Steady. "You used it." The room didn't move. Didn't breathe. Dana stepped forward then. "This isn't," she started, her voice shaking. "Elaine, you're twisting things." I turned to her. Really looked at her. At the earrings. At the way she stood there like she still had something to say. "You stopped being family," I said the moment you walked into my bedroom. Her mouth opened. Closed. No words came out. Greg stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. "Please," he said, "not here." I held his gaze. This is exactly where I replied. There was movement at the edge of the room. Sheila stepped forward. Calm, professional. She handed Greg a set of documents. "You've been served," she said simply. Greg stared at the papers like they were written in another language. "What is this?" he asked. "Divorce filing," she replied. "And notice regarding financial review of business accounts connected to marital assets." Behind him, Kevin Barlow, his partner, looked over at the documents on the table. His face drained of color. "Greg," he said slowly, "what is this?" Greg didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Because everything was sitting there. In plain view. No room to explain it away? No room to charm his way out. I closed the folder. Picked it up. And stepped back. Greg reached for me. "Elaine, wait." I didn't stop. "I need you," he said louder now. That word hung in the air. Need. I paused for half a second. Not enough to turn. Just enough to answer. "You needed me before," I said. Then I walked toward the door. Rosa beside me. The room stayed silent behind us. No applause. No shouting. Just the quiet sound of everything collapsing. And for the first time in days, I felt steady. The house felt different the first night I slept there alone. Not empty. Just quieter. Not the heavy kind of quiet I walked into after that trip. This was something else. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a long time before going in. Same walls, same window, same dresser. But it didn't feel like mine yet. Not completely. I stripped the bed the next morning. All of it. Sheets, pillowcases, mattress cover. I didn't rush, just worked through it piece by piece. Loaded everything into the washer and watched it spin like that would clean more than fabric. It didn't. But it helped. Greg didn't come back that night. Or the next. His lawyer called instead. Short conversation, professional tone. Temporary arrangements, access to accounts, property discussions. All very clean. Very controlled. Nothing like what actually happened. I moved through the next few days the same way. Work, home, sleep. Except sleep didn't come easy. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and swear I heard his truck pulling into the driveway. I'd sit up, hold my breath, and listen. Nothing. Just the house settling. I cried once. Not during the open house, not in the lawyer's office. Standing in the kitchen holding 2 coffee mugs. One mine, one his. That was it. No big moment. Just that. I rinsed his and put it in the cabinet. Then I didn't take it back out again. Word got around faster than I expected. Not the full story. Just pieces of it. Dana started telling people I had lost it. Said I made a scene, that I misunderstood things. I didn't respond. Didn't correct anyone. Because the truth wasn't something I needed to argue. It was already documented. Already filed. Already sitting in more than one office. Rosa called me one afternoon and said, "Your sister-in-law is doing damage control." I smiled a little. "She's late," I said. There were a few calls from extended family. Careful voices. "Is everything okay? We heard something." I kept it simple. "No," I said, "it's not, but I'm handling it." That seemed to be enough. Or maybe people just didn't want details. That happens more than you'd think. Greg's business didn't collapse overnight. But it shifted. Fast. Kevin pulled back. Clients hesitated. One of the investors Greg had been talking about canceled a follow-up meeting. Not because of the affair. Because of the money. That part mattered more. It always does. A week later I changed the locks. Not just the regular ones. The smart lock system too. Sat on the floor by the front door with the instruction manual and my reading glasses figuring it out step by step. When I finally got it working, I stood up, stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Then I punched in the new code. The lock clicked. Clean, solid. I did it again. Opened, closed. Click. That sound stayed with me. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. I sold the bedroom set a few days later. Put it up online, took decent pictures, didn't overthink it. A couple came by that weekend. Young, just starting out. They liked it. Paid cash. Loaded it into a rented truck. I stood in the empty room after they left. Sunlight coming through the window hitting the bare floor. It looked bigger without everything in it. Lighter. Rosa came over that afternoon with 2 lamps from Target and a new bed frame still in the box. Assembly required, she said, reading the label. Of course it is, I replied. We spent 2 hours putting it together. Or trying to. At one point we had the frame upside down and didn't realize it until we stepped back. Rosa looked at it, then at me. Well, she said, at least neither of us married this thing. I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in weeks, it surprised me. The sound of it. How normal it felt. Greg left me a voicemail that night. I almost didn't listen to it. But I did. Elaine, please call me back, he said. His voice was rough. I made a mistake. Dana. She doesn't mean anything. This just got out of hand. We can fix this. I stared at my phone for a long time after it ended. Then I set it down. If she meant nothing, then he threw away everything for nothing. And if she did mean something, he was still lying. Either way, there wasn't anything left to fix. The new bed felt different the first night. Not better. Not worse. Just unfamiliar. I lay there staring at the ceiling again. Same position as before. Same room. Different life. But this time, the silence didn't feel like something was missing. It felt like something had been removed. Something heavy. Something I didn't realize I was carrying. I turned onto my side. Pulled the blanket up. Closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I slept. If you've ever had to start over later in life, you already know. It doesn't come with a clean break. It comes in pieces. Quiet ones. But piece by piece you take yourself back. And that's enough.